Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3 of the Integra build. The other week I just picked up the car from Roll Cage Fabrication and Interior Paint. Frankie from Not Scared Racing and Fabrication did this up in Perth. He did a fantastic job. It's turned out really nice. Interior colour, it's Honda Polished Grey Metallic. It's a pretty standard colour across a bunch of the late model Hondas. I thought that goes quite well with the black exterior. I didn't want to go for a white interior, it'd be a bit too bright. So yeah, really happy how this turned out. It's a full national spec cage, so it has all the extra bars required for that. It's also tied into the front strut towers, and the main benefit of how this is all done is it's super tight to the car and there's a heap of room to get in and out. So I'm a pretty lanky guy, I'm 6'1", and these are pretty small cars, so we've managed to get the seat really far back and really low by having the main hoop anchored up on the sort of the base of the rear seats rather than down in front of that sort of little drop down there. So that's given us heaps more room. That's worked out quite well. Seating position is really good. I'll probably just chuck the seat forwards or lean it forwards a tiny bit more just to get it, me sitting a little more upright, but I've got heaps of room around my helmet to the cage, including when we add the padding. On the side of the car here you can see some tubes that are welded into the sills. So these are for rally style pin stands. I've got 3 tubes on each side, one in the middle acting as a jack point, and that's lined up with the centre of gravity of the car. So that's more of just future proofing, so when the time comes to run some decent aero on the car, we have sort of deeper side skirts, front splitters, things that prevent access to the factory jack points. This will make life very easy. They basically just chuck a little pin or a rod inside these tubes and jack up from there, and then also stick your axle stands under there as well. Car's super clean now, so I'm going to have to be pretty careful not to scratch it all while I'm assembling the rest of it, but yeah, super happy how it turned out. Also picked up some wheels and tyres. Had these powder coated, so these are just rotor grids. I can't afford T37s at the moment, which are a lot lighter, but in the future we'll go for that. Had them powder coated in a sort of candy apple red colour. Really pops in the sun. Very stoked with how these turned out. These are the rear wheels you're looking at now, so they've got 235 45/17 Advant AO50s on them, which are my tyre of choice. And they're on a 17x8 rim and a plus 44. They probably won't quite clear the rear trailing arm, so I'll chuck a 5mm spacer on. But that's quite a wide rear tyre to get in the back of one of these. So hopefully fits in the guards. For fronts, running a 17x9 plus 25. At this stage just got some old Kumo V70As, 255 40/17 just for testing. So we'll do a few, once the car's up and running, do a few test days on those. And then buy a new set of AO50s for the front as well. AO50s are pretty expensive, so I didn't want to sort of chew through a set of those just setting the car up initially. For the rest of this video, what I'm going to do is get the car back in the garage, get it up and pull all the suspension subframes out of it so I can get it on dollies. It can be sort of just moved around the garage a lot easier, and that also lets me start prepping suspension for final install. So the rear trailing arms need some gussets installed and the roll center correction kit installed on them, and front suspension, yeah, I'll get the subframe cleaned up, get some solid mounts on the steering rack and install the locking collars to better align the subframe to the car. I'll also probably just do a little few tidy up bits and pieces, like removing the engine mount, the B series engine mount out of the bay, ready for the K series mount to go in, and just start prepping for more mechanical installation. Alright, let's get into it. So we just put the car up on some dollies. Not the most amazing solution in the world, just some furniture dollies and some big wooden blocks underneath the jacking points of the car, but being that there's nothing in the shell, it's pretty light, so this is all good. And just a single one on the back underneath the rear toe point. This helps me move it around a lot easier in the garage, way better than trying to sort of shuffle it in and out. So I can fit my daily in here as well. So now I'll get on to removing all the suspension and subframes, so I'll chuck you on time lapse and we'll get into it.
You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
So it was pretty straightforward. Just moved all the front suspension, brake booster, ABS, brake lines, front subframe. Everything came out pretty easy. I got rid of front guards too, because I'll start to clearance some of these seams up here for the bigger diameter wheels, so I don't cut my tyres when it gets pretty low. Car's starting to get super stripped now. Got everything laid out over here. Subframe is a breeze to take out, and then just got a big bunch of stuff, all the suspension and brakes. I'll try and sell what I can, recoup a bit of money, because literally all of that is getting replaced. Next up, what I want to do is cut out this engine mount. This is for the B series. The K series motor is 180 degrees offset to the B series, so the front of the K series motor sits here, and that clashes with that mount. So the Hasport mount kit has a replacement, but we need to drill out the spot welds off this, remove that, grind it down a bit, and get that ready. So we'll do that now.
Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side.
Cool, that came out relatively easily. One of the spot welds wasn't accessible with a drill, so I just kind of had to brute force that off with a chisel and a pry bar once the others were free. But yeah, I've cleaned that up, got a couple other little brackets off just next to it, and chopped off some studs that were sticking out on the firewall as well to clean that up. So that's kind of where the exhaust runs. I won't be mounting too many things above the headers there. I'll go with a silica primer. That'll be done for a little while, and then I've got to paint the engine bay at some point once I finish mocking everything up. But yeah, now I'll get on to rear suspension, I think.
My love, you say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason.
So that's all done. That too was pretty straightforward. So I've taken suspension in and out of these things a lot now. Yeah, that's all out. Still need to strip down the rear arms, get that ready for 5-stud conversion, weld in gusset plates, all that sort of stuff. So I'll get onto that sometime soon. In the meantime though, I think it's time to clean up. Got a heap of crap out of the car today, so organise that. Whatever I'm keeping, chuck away in some tubs. Whatever I'm selling, get that up. But yeah, that's about it for now. Good morning, it's a new day, I've got back into it. Today I just pulled everything off the rear trailing arms, disassembled the front subframe, got that all ready to go. Gave it all good degrease in a power wash. Hasn't turned up amazing. I'm in two minds as to whether I want to repaint these or not. We'll see how much energy I have for that, probably can't be bothered. And also gave the engine bay a bit of a clean as well. Some pretty good nick anyway. There wasn't really any leaks or grease coming out of the original engine, so it was just kind of grit and dust and stuff in there, so I just gave that a bit of a soap up and a wash down. I'll let that dry out in the sun for a while. Next will be probably clearancing the wheel arches, so getting those seams out of the way ready for the tyres. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is these seams where the body panels are joined together, I want to fold all those flat. So these cars are only designed with 15-inch wheels, which, you know, with their tyres are sort of around 580-600mm in diameter. When we jump up to 17-inch wheels, which most of us do for track cars, that jumps you up to sort of like 640mm diameter tyre. So running the car at the same ride height means your tyre is 20mm closer to these seams. So on a few of my friends' cars, I've seen these cut into the tyres before at full bump. So what I'm going to do is just lightly heat them and give a bit of massage with the hammer, and get those nice and flat out of the way. In terms of structural integrity, I'm not super worried. The roll cage is tied into the front strut tower, so I'm not too worried about that. And yeah, it's not breaking any of the seams, so I'm pretty happy. Right, we'll get that happening now. Alright, that's pretty quick and easy. We can see down here it's all folded flat. It's just the seam sealer giving way. The seam itself hasn't actually broken. Got that flat up against the rest of the body, and same up the top. Roll that all over. So it's given me an extra probably 15 or 20 mil of room before the tyre contacts the body. Pretty good outcome for about 5 minutes work. Next up, I'll start mocking up the gussets on the rear trailing arms and also do some modifications to fit the honed roll centre correction brackets on those. Alright, so with the rear trailing arms, when you start running pretty big tyres, especially sticky tyres and going hard on the track, these can tend to fatigue and crack. So Hone Developments makes a gusset kit. So just some bits of laser cut steel with some dimple dies pressed into them. I'll get one of my friends to prep these up and stitch weld them on, and that'll close in the rear of the box in the rear of the arm, make it a lot stronger. There's also these little gussets down here, so this is where the rear lower control arm mounts. We also put more stress on this because the roll centre correction kit actually spaces this bracket further down, so it's increasing the leverage of that arm on the rest of the structure. So we have a small little gusset here which kind of clips in, gets knocked in with a hammer, and then stitch welded through there to reinforce that as well. Just down here you can see there's a captive nut that's welded onto the original bracket where the bolt for the rear lower control arm goes in from factory. With those honed roll centre correction brackets, they kind of slide on over this, so we need to chop that off. So I'll get the grinder out and get onto that now. It's a pretty tight spot, so it's not the easiest thing to get to. I'll try and do as much as I can with a cut-off wheel, and then probably just chisel the rest off and then tidy it up. You'll also see that the trailing arm bushes have been pressed out. I've got a PCI spherical trailing arm bush kit, so I'll mock that up and get the holes drilled for that as well before I send this off to get the brackets welded on, just while I've got easy access to the back of this. So this is the bracket that I'm holding here in my hand. As you can see, I've chopped off that nub, but that surface there still needs to be ground down a bit so this can slide on. So I'll do a bit more work with the grinder, and that should hopefully slip over. Cool, so that's turned out pretty good. Get the thing off. I did forget that I need to trim down this edge here because the washers on the inside were contacting that, so I checked the instruction manual to confirm that. Bunch of sludge and stuff in here, just road grime. Had to get some of that out of the way, but it all fits pretty good. So the way this bolts on, essentially, once that's in place, you put a bolt through the normal hole, and then drill a hole up in here, which puts a secondary bolt in there, and that locks it in place. So yeah, I'll do that now. Cool, it's now ready to bolt up. I'll just repeat that for the other side. I won't bolt them in just yet. That's why I used some just mock-up nuts before, because the actual nuts are sort of cone lock deforming nuts. So yeah, I'll wait till everything's welded, everything's sort of been painted on this arm, and then install those brackets just before they go back in the car. So now I'm going to prep for the installation of these PCI spherical rear trailing arm bushings. So the normal rear trailing arm bushing goes in here. It's generally just a big cylinder of rubber with a rod going through it, so it has a lot of compliance. We like spherical bearings for track work because it has zero misalignment at all. There's no compliance in the bushing, so great for maintaining your alignment and much more direct handling. These are a pretty cool little unit, so they I'll drill one hole starting there. This then pops into the hole itself. I can then mark out and drill the other hole and get ready to get the bolts through for that, so I'll do that now. So that didn't work quite as planned. Once it's pressed in, you can see the holes are ever so slightly offset. So I'm going to have to hog those out to slightly bigger holes to make this thing work, but that's all good. I think next time what I'll do for the other arm is seat this the whole way in there, because it's slightly misaligned with the hole that was marked out on the trailing arm itself. That's all good, easy to fix. Alrighty, that's now sorted. Not the perfect solution, but we'll do better on the next one. Alright, next up we're going to reassemble the subframe. Before I do that, there's a couple of things I want to do to the steering rack. First is to install these lock limiting spacers from Honed. So these come as part of their adjustable tie rod end kit, which is necessary for the tie rod end kit because they have straight tie rods, whereas the factory ones are sort of like curved to give more clearance for wheels. So if you limit your lock, obviously your wheel's not going to turn as far and clash those tie rods. But more importantly for me, running such wide front tyres, 255s on a 17, there's basically 100% chance they're going to contact the inside of the wheel arch at full lock. So I'd like to reduce that lock, prevent that happening. I've got another set of these if I need to reduce it even further. It doesn't sort of affect how the car turns, like you're not ever at full lock on the racetrack, even at the very tight sort of rally sprint courses anyway. I had the same kit in my previous EG Civic and there was no worries at all. Second major parts is these aluminium sort of solid bushes to mount the rack. So these clip onto the rack and go back into the subframe. So yeah, firstly I'll pop these boots off, get the spacers on, and then get everything put back into the subframe and have that assembled pretty much ready to go. Cool, that's now complete. They're all seated down nicely. Subframe is pretty much ready to go. Alrighty, that'll do it for today and for this episode. Got the trailing arms there with the gussets ready to go out. I'll find somebody to weld them up. Subframe's done, ready to go in. Car is all cleaned out. Got some primer on the exposed areas. Probably next time I'll mock up the engine mounts, start looking at that, how the engine's going to fit in the car, and then hopefully by then I'll have some stuff back and can start sort of rear suspension assembly at least, but we'll see what we can get done. Thanks very much, see you next time.